way to the mic, they start dimming the lights. You start feeling alright. From Birmingham, home of the Teddy Longs and the Ruben Studders. More once you discover. For all of the lovers of Whitney Houston and Roman Reigns. For all of the lovers of Mickey James and Marvin Gaye. For all of the lovers of Sasha Banks, Janelle Monáe, Silk, Sonic, and Paige. Allow me to say, look, I just found a place, sweet escape. Every one of us, I was kinda late, I just made it off the struggle bus. Walking by the faith, cause I know it's right in front of us. Yo, I ain't with the hate, gotta focus on what's great. Ladies and gentlemen, Steph Hardy is on the air. Had to drop a couple bars just to make you all aware. So, sit back, relax, enjoy the show. You know I go by Joe or the rest of them.
Hey y'all, welcome to another new episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl Stephanie Hardy. So on this episode, I've got your news and gossip-ish, which is filled with a lot of juicy stuff. And I've got a special Valentine's Day themed interview with the politician Dexter Roswell, who is an accomplished wrestler in his own right, and his husband Logan Roswell. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this new, chill, positive, and passionate episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. All right, so in this news and gossip-ish, there is so much that happened this week in wrestling, like literally so much overwhelming stuff that happened this week. That's good, that's dramatic, that's like, we don't know where we're going. Like, that's the type of stuff that happened in wrestling this week. But none of it's really heavy, so of course I'm gonna get into it and we're gonna talk about it here. So one of the most overwhelming pieces of news that came out of this week in wrestling was the fact that the American Nightmare and former champion across various brands and co-founder, I believe, of AEW, Cody Rhodes, and his wife, Brandy Rhodes, by extension, are leaving AEW. They basically shocked everybody like 5 days ago and with statements talking about where they're going, you know, thanking people and all of the above. And a lot of people were wondering if it was real, if it was fake, is it a lie? Like, don't nobody know what's going on. But basically they released a statement individually. Cody said, "I have loved my time at AEW. Amazing locker room, amazing fans, amazing people. The revolution was indeed televised, and I've been incredibly lucky to be a part of that." And he thanked Tony Khan. He thanked the Young Bucks and a number of like Kenny Omega, like a number of various people who's worked for the company. A lot of the stars that are there today, like Red Velvet, Nyla Rose, like Ruby Soho, Wardlow, everyone, -1, everyone. He thanked everyone who's had anything to do with AEW and the growth of it and everything. And even Brandy released a statement thanking a lot of people, including the Special Olympics and Culture City and the American Heart Association and all the partnerships that they've created, and thanking Warner Media for treating, you know, her family just like your family. And they both thanked Tony Khan for the opportunity and the platform. And also, she ended her statement with a quote. They posted both of them on Instagram and Twitter. So she ended her statement with a quote that says, "We must take time to define our own path. Too quickly, we can find the world defining it for us. Also, I'll see you on the flippity flop, Michael Scott." And this sent social media, wrestling social media, into an absolute frenzy, because not only do Cody and Brandy, you know, they had their deal with AEW, they also had their own reality show called Roads to the Top, which only had one season. And a lot of people were wondering, you know, what is going to happen with that show? You know, how is it that how was stuff going with them backstage at AEW, knowing they were going to make this move, and where exactly are they going after they leave this company, which seemingly had everything made for them in terms of having power in the company, say so within the company, and even being featured on television and in matches. Like, it's crazy. But a lot of wrestling insiders said that they kind of saw this move coming simply because of the fact that they feel like Cody Rhodes really isn't the type to really fit in at an AEW, which is more so of the independent wrestling circuit. And he really gives off like, I could be one of the big stars of a more mainstream product, like say WWE or something like that. And it's just, and that's no diss to AEW, because they're, gaining ground in terms of mainstream, notoriety or whatever. But at the same time, when you have people who came through the indies and made their own, company, like the Young Bucks and like Kenny Omega, excuse me, it's just kind of like they were saying that he really didn't fit that because he's a pretty boy. And like Sir Wilkins from the Jobber Tears podcast would say, he's a pretty boy and he's a Ken doll. And they're not really completely wrong about that. But Cody, once he left WWE, he wanted to, improve on himself and be the wrestler that he wanted to be and be the character that he wanted to be, and he was able to do that, when he went through various, promotions like Impact Wrestling and like NWA and stuff like that. And then even on to AEW and even Ring of Honor and stuff like that. But now that he's grown himself, a lot of rumors are going, are basically leaning towards him and Brandy going back to WWE, which is ultimately where he got his start. So it's just, no one truly knows at this point. But I just wish them the best in whatever choice they choose to make. I'm not the type of person who would, look at this as a negative, because when one door closes, another one opens. So if this is going to open a really big door for them to go, say, to WWE or somewhere else, then that's perfectly fine. It would be cool if they did come back to WWE around this time, which is WrestleMania time. But at the same time, it's whatever they choose to do. And whatever they choose to do, I'm sure will be the best decision for themselves and for their family and their daughter and stuff. So congratulations to Brandy and Cody, who continue to be relevant in wrestling no matter what. And yeah, I just wish them the very best. Also in the news, we got the great, awesome news this week that The Undertaker was going to be headlining the 2022 class in the Hall of Fame in WWE this year. This was reported by the New York Post and various other news outlets that he's going to be headlining the class this year. Which is with the induction basically taking place in Dallas, Texas, where WrestleMania is going to be for 2 nights. And when I got this news, I was really happy. I was at work when I got the news or whatever, and I was really happy and my heart was full. Because if it's anybody who definitely deserves to go into the Hall of Fame, absolutely deserves, is definitely The Undertaker. Because he's been wrestling out here. He had been wrestling out here under the Undertaker character, under different iterations of the character, for almost 30 years now. And he only just retired like last year at Survivor Series. And it's just, he's one of those wrestlers that continues to remain relevant. Even if you may not watch wrestling, if you used to watch wrestling in the 90s and you sort of quit and fell off of watching wrestling, you still sort of keep up with The Undertaker in the sense that he's always relevant regardless of, where you are in your wrestling fandom or whatever. Like, I'll never forget when he seemingly retired after his match with Roman Reigns in Florida, and he left his hat and his coat and his gloves in the ring, and everybody thought that was him retiring. I can't tell you how many people, who I was friends with who weren't wrestling fans, at that point as adults, but used to be, were asking me what was going on and sort of sharing all the various posts paying tribute to The Undertaker and all of that. So he is highly respected in various points of pop culture. And I'm just really happy that this is happening to him. It's a beautiful moment. And it's a wonderful closure to a career. Now, we don't know who's going to induct him with the induction speech at the Hall of Fame just yet. I wish it could be Paul Bearer, but sadly, he's no longer with us. But I'm sure he'll be watching from heaven. But it could be Kane, who was his brother of destruction for a long period of time. Or it might be Vince McMahon, who I believe has maybe only inducted one person into the Hall of Fame one time. So it would make sense if he did, because even with the documentaries that came out that were centered on The Undertaker last year, throughout an entire month, he was talking so much about how much he's fond of The Undertaker, how much he loves him and stuff like that, like his own son. So I wouldn't be surprised if Vince McMahon did it, but I'm pretty sure either way, regardless of who's chosen to induct him, it will be tastefully done, and it will be, the perfect conclusion to an amazing wrestling career. So congratulations to The Undertaker. We at the Hardy Wrestling Podcast love you. I keep saying we, but it's really just me. But either way, I love you, Undertaker. And also on top of that, he made a surprise appearance as his American Badass Undertaker character at a Bad Bunny concert yesterday, and they took a picture of him on social media walking backstage with Bad Bunny, because of course Bad Bunny is a Latin rapper, and he's definitely made multiple appearances on WWE television within the last year from WrestleMania on, and even with the Royal Rumble this year. I've said multiple times, he's the greatest celebrity wrestling fan / celebrity wrestler that WWE's ever had, and he does not mind incorporating wrestlers into his music and into his shows. So this was just another example of that. So it was cool to see him do that amongst those fans and everything, just like Booker T made his appearance in the Booker T music video that Bad Bunny made. So The Undertaker is just going through a nice season right now where he's just being able to smell his flowers, and that's always good. So let's give him his flowers while he's here, because baby, once it's all over, it's over. So let's just give him his flowers, while he can smell them. So congratulations to him. Also, this week, we have the amazing news that Johnny Gargano, aka Johnny Wrestling, and his wife Candice LeRae, who I believe may or may not still be with WWE NXT, we don't know, had their baby boy, and they named him Quill, just like the Marvel character from Guardians of the Galaxy, just like Star-Lord. So congratulations to them. It was a healthy baby boy, and they've taken pictures with him on Instagram over the past couple of days, and they are smitten and in love with their baby, and that's always the sweetest thing. So welcome to the world, Quill, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna have the best parents and the best play uncles and aunties that you could ever wish for. And just the fact that, you're born into a wrestling family, I'm wondering if he's going to grow up to be a wrestler. You never know. But congratulations to Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae. Also, in the news, we have the unfortunate news that Bobby Lashley, Lord have mercy, was injured, basically, going into Elimination Chamber. Of course, Elimination Chamber, the premium live event / pay-per-view, depending on who you are, was yesterday, and he was supposed to be a participant in the WWE Championship Elimination Chamber match that took place in Saudi Arabia with him, Brock Lesnar, Austin Theory, AJ Styles, and Seth Rollins, and Matt Riddle. Yeah. And as the match went on, he kept not being chosen to be put inside the match. But then when it was his time, he was actually, someone, I believe somehow or another, the pod may have collapsed or somebody crashed into him and opened up his pod, and he was injured, and couldn't return to the match. So therefore, whoever was left in the Elimination Chamber match was going to be the new WWE champion, because he was not healthy enough to defend it. So there was a report that came out that said that WWE reportedly knew in advance that Bobby Lashley wouldn't be able to compete on Saturday, and per H. Jenkins of Ringside News, who we have to take with a little bit of a grain of salt, because sometimes they're known to be accurate and sometimes they're not, but most of the time not. WWE knew Lashley had an injury for weeks leading up to the show, and Mike Johnson from PWI Insider reported that Lashley suffered a shoulder injury during his match with Brock Lesnar at the Royal Rumble, and that he took several suplexes in which he appeared to turn and land on his shoulder against Lesnar. And that despite WWE having knowledge of him being unable to compete, he still traveled to Saudi Arabia and made his entrance for the main event match. And basically, he was taken out when Seth Rollins threw Austin Theory into his chamber with a buckle bomb. So, yeah, and the storyline announcement that WWE made said that Lashley had entered concussion protocol and would undergo additional evaluation when he returns to the United States. So, after that point, the match went on, and of course, Brock Lesnar, in dominating and irritating fashion, as a matter of fact, because it just irritated me how a lot of these people who used to be champions, who used to be WWE champions and used to be Universal champions, and who have beaten Brock Lesnar in the past, in the case of Seth Rollins, were not able to put up a defense against Brock Lesnar. It's like Brock Lesnar was just hitting F5s on people and covering people. And even though Austin Theory looked like he was going to make a major upset after hitting Brock Lesnar in the privates, he climbed up the chamber, and then Brock Lesnar climbed up to the chamber to get him, and then he F5'd him off of the chamber pod and hit him with the 1, 2, 3, and now Brock Lesnar is the WWE champion. And now he is set to face off against Roman Reigns in a champion versus champion match at WrestleMania. Now, there are rumors going around that this match may main event one night, but we don't know. But at the same time, I think it's kind of sad because there was one interview that Brock Lesnar did on the Pat McAfee show where he was saying, that he was waiting on the guys who are already there to step up. But my thing is, you have all of this talent that's shown themselves as worthy to be champion multiple times. But somehow or another, when it comes to big four events, somehow or another, Brock Lesnar is always thrown in there. So it's just, is it really his problem, or is it really WWE's problem because they can't put a story or a compelling storyline or book other people that's consistently there all the time to be a strong, and viable option to be a champion? I really feel like it's the company's problem, but then at the same time, Brock Lesnar is also going along with it, so it might be also his problem as well. But either way, he's a champion now. Roman and Brock are going to fight, and it's looking like it may be title for title. I'm not sure, but that's what we're getting now. So it's whatever, but I do wish a speedy recovery for Bobby Lashley. I know that we were all sort of holding, a lot of, black wrestling fans were holding on to the hope that we were going to have a black WWE champion again headed into WrestleMania, especially during Black History Month, but injuries happen. These people are human, and you're bound to mess up at some point. So we wish him a speedy recovery, and I hope he gets better. Also in the news, we have the report that people in the company were thrilled and also blown away by Lita's performance in her Raw Women's Championship match against Becky Lynch that also happened Saturday at Elimination Chamber. So per Mike Johnson of PW Insider said that there were a number of people in the company who were blown away by the reception for Lita in her match against Becky Lynch. Saturday marked Lita's first singles match since 2006, not counting Raw's 1000th episode in 2012, which was 10 years ago, when she pinned Heath Slater in a no count out, no disqualification bout after several legends attacked Heath Slater. This match was amazing. For someone who hadn't wrestled a full-on match since 2006, she did such a good job against Becky Lynch. There were a couple of moments where I thought for sure Lita could possibly come out with the win. But y'all know Becky, she has to come out, she basically has to, beat people and destroy people with her busted ass rock bottom manhandle slam thing. So she wound up winning. So now Becky has one opponent waiting for her at WrestleMania in the form of the EST of WWE, Bianca Belair, who gets to get her vengeance finally. But back to Lita though. She did so good. Lita really did a good job. And then after the match was over, Lita got a standing ovation from the crowd in Saudi Arabia. She, was making poses in the ring and standing on the top rope or whatever. And and it was just really good. So who's to say maybe this isn't it for Lita? Maybe Lita will go on and face other people and have like her one last run. But I wouldn't be too mad about it myself, considering Lita's a legend and she should be respected as such. Because I feel like in some cases, a lot of people get caught up in the fact that Lita did get caught up in that scandal involving Matt Hardy and Edge. And yes, that is a terrible blemish on her wrestling career, in a sense. But when it comes to like her being an historic figure into why women's wrestling is what it is now, you cannot deny her impact. Like, a lot of the women in the locker room really say, and in other promotions as well, really say that Lita was one of their favorite wrestlers growing up and one of their biggest inspirations. So it's like when you mention Lita, it's like when you mention Trish Stratus, you always have to mention Lita right afterward. So Lita definitely deserves this moment for her and deserves to be remembered as one of the pillars of women's wrestling as a whole. And I was glad she had that moment. So big ups to Lita, and big ups for women's wrestling taking an amazing stand, in Saudi Arabia with 3 matches. Like, it was, of course, it used to be in Saudi Arabia, they would go and not have a women's match, or they just would have like 1 match. But this time they were able to go and have 3 matches, and the women looked amazing in their gear that of course had to cover them up, but at the same time they still looked good. So congratulations to all those women who performed and all the women who came out the winners. Like, that was good. I liked it. It was nice. It was a nice show of equality there. And finally in the news, we have Corey Graves and Carmella premiering their new YouTube reality show with WWE called Corey and Carmella. If you follow them on Instagram or on Twitter, I'm pretty sure you've noticed some of their really nice thirst trap pictures, couples pictures that they have posted of themselves, in really hot poses that couples tend to be in. And it was all a part of announcing the fact that they have a reality show centered on their coupledom, of course, and also centering on them being engaged and being an engaged couple, and learning the ins and outs of their relationship outside of their podcast, which is called Bear With Us, where they're known by their real names, which are Matt and Leah. But they announced it on their podcast as well. It's a really interesting relationship podcast. It's really funny. They're a hysterical couple. And I'm really happy that they have this opportunity to be able to have this reality show, even if it is on YouTube, to really show the ins and outs of their relationship. Because also on top of them being wrestlers, and also in the case of Carmella, a business owner for her Capo Cagna brand, for her wine, you have them, you have Carmella sort of learning how to be a step parent to Corey's children. And it seems like she's definitely adapted to the idea of Corey, having children from his previous marriage, and that they all get along in a beautiful way. And they also just bought a house. So I cannot wait for them to get married. They said on the podcast that their marriage, I believe their wedding is supposed to be a little bit after WrestleMania, which is crazy for me because I'm just like, that week is hectic for wrestling journalists and just wrestling fans as a whole, because there's so much wrestling going on in various promotions, including WWE. So I can only imagine, after being that busy that week, you decide to get married. Like, that's just a lot. But congratulations to them. And I will give their reality show a try. Now, more than likely, it'll be hard for me to catch up, because sometimes I'll start a TV show and then not finish it or something like that, because my attention span is just that short, because I have 10,000 things to do at a time, and other relationships to cultivate in my own life. But, I will still try my best to watch it. So yeah, like, I'm really happy that got to happen. Plus, not to mention, I love how I was just talking about reality shows and how they help get new wrestling fans, you know, in the case of Total Divas and Total Bellas, and now in this case Corey and Carmella with Blurred Sunbae at Comic-Con, which I will probably tell you guys about in another episode, my experience at Comic-Con and how that fan table went. But that was really great, and I was actually able to have a conversation with Blurred Sunbae about, you know, the reality shows and how they actually help, you know, pull in new wrestling fans who otherwise may not have paid attention to wrestling before. And I think Corey and Carmella is a good example of that. So that's really all for news and gossip-ish. And now we're going to go to my interview with the politician Dexter Roswell and his husband, Logan Roswell. Okay, so I was sitting with my friends one day and they asked me, Stephanie, how do you record your podcast? And I said, with the Anchor app on my phone. And they were like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, it's that simple. It is absolutely free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone and your computer. And it will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from the podcast with no minimum listenership. And it's got everything you need to make a podcast in one place. They even have classes and stuff that you can listen to that will give you all kinds of good tips on what you need to do in order to make the best podcast. So if you want to do this, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's anchor.fm, or download the free Anchor app to get started. All right, so on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, that is love themed because Valentine's Day did just, pass by, I have two amazing special guests on my show. We have the politician and IWA champion, Dexter Roswell, and his husband, Logan. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Can't complain. So yeah, it's just, just chilling out and just doing me. And I'm just happy to have you guys on my show because I met you guys, backstage at the last Belladonna division show. And I was just hearing you guys' story and seeing you guys back there, with each other just really was just really cool. So I was like, so if I'm going to do anything, for Valentine's Day, I know I wanted, either a couple of couples or maybe just one couple at least on my show, because I feel like love and wrestling is a very cool topic to talk about. So yeah, I'm so happy you guys are on.
We are too.
Great. So I'm gonna start by asking you guys, when did you fall in love with wrestling?
Oh God.
Oh gosh. I'll go ahead and start out. So I started watching wrestling when I was 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I remember just flipping through the TV and coming across wrestling. It was Monday Night Raw, and I think it was Stone Cold versus Steve Blackman, the most random of matches. So nothing that had any implications on anything, but it caught my attention, and I just kept watching it week after week and falling more and more in love with it.
Oh gosh. I mean, I was young, but I think it was a Trish Stratus match. Actually.
Mm-hmm.
I know, right? I want to say probably about the same age, really.
Okay.
I feel like it was a long time ago.
Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like when you sit and think about when you first started, and then you think about where you are now. You're just like, dang, I've really been in this thing this long.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when you start talking decades of watching it, that's when you know you've watched it for a while.
Makes you feel old.
Yeah, it does. And then they start referencing things from the past, and you're just, wait a minute, that's not the past, is it? But then you think about it and you're like, oh yeah, that was forever ago. Dang, I am getting old.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Whenever I started watching wrestling, I started going back and watching matches from before I was born and before I started watching wrestling. So I can kind of reference those as well, but not alive in the moment for those.
Yeah, definitely. So, Dexter, I want to ask you, when did you decide that you wanted to make wrestling your life's work?
Well, like most wrestling fans, they've always wanted to try it in some capacity, but I just never thought that I would do it. You know, I live in Southern Illinois, so there isn't much wrestling down here, or so I thought. So it was about whenever I was 24, turning 25, when I was just going through our mall in Marion, Illinois, and I came across Stride Pro Wrestling. And like, I remember walking through there and seeing like the store front, they had black tarps over it, and I was like, what in the world is going on here? What, you know? So I look and I see it's a flyer for wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it was about an hour until the show started. So I just sat there and waited, you know. So I was like, what else am I going to do? Go home and sit down and watch TV? Might as well watch it in person. So went to that first show, ended up knowing a few people there just from living in the same town as them. And at the time, me and my friend, we were doing a podcast about wrestling. And we were going to see about getting the guy that runs the show, Keith Hatton, on there. So we were talking back and forth. It never actually happened because the podcast kind of went away after that, because I started focusing on actually training for wrestling. So, and that's a decision that I'll never regret.
Okay. And I do remember you were telling me that Logan, you're actually starting training for wrestling as well?
Yes, actually. I've had about five training sessions so far.
Okay. So how are you so what drew you to that decision for yourself?
Well, I've always wanted to do it before. Never really kind of stepped out and just done it. I mean, it was like about five more years ago. I have a friend, he works at a company in Omaha, Nebraska, and I was like, oh man, I could do this. You know, I went to this show, I'm like, I could do this, and then just never did it. And, you know, we ended up meeting, and, you know, wrestling's part of the reason we fell in love with each other. And, you know, about 2 years later, I'm just like, you know, I want to try this. So I'm just giving it a try, giving it a go, and seeing how it works out for me, you know.
Okay, that's really cool that you've decided to, you know, make this your life as Dexter has made it his. So I guess one day down the line, y'all will tag team with each other?
Or face off against each other.
Either or. I mean, is that something y'all are open to?
He always jokes about us being the first Mr. and Mr. of wrestling.
Oh, that would be amazing. Like, I feel like that's necessary at this point. Because, I mean, I feel like it's absolutely possible. Yeah. I would love that. That would be so cool.
The power couple.
Yes, that would be amazing. So, you guys were talking about how wrestling was kind of the reason why you guys fell in love with each other. So, how exactly did you two meet?
Well, we actually met on a dating app. Mm-hmm. And actually, a lot of guys use this app just to, you know, just meet people and, you know, do the deed. But we actually met and we started talking, and he's like, well, I'm actually up in your area. I'm a professional wrestler. And I was like, okay, say what? You're a wrestler? Okay, I'm intrigued here. And he's like, I'll send you some pictures of what I wrestle in. So he sends them, and he goes, this is a suit. I wrestle in a suit. And I'm like, wait, what? This,
not what he was expecting.
I was like, this is not what I was expecting. I'm like, a suit, huh? Oh yeah, I'm a politician gimmick. I was like, oh, this is gonna be interesting.
Mm-hmm. One of the great things that, like, I credit wrestling a lot for many things that have happened in my life, but like we said, it's one of the reasons why me and him are together, because where I wrestled at for IWA Unlimited, they're out of Noble, Illinois, and at the time you were in Vincennes, mm-hmm. Indiana. So because I was at that show, it allowed us to be within a close enough distance to find each other on the app. Mm-hmm. So if it wasn't for wrestling, we wouldn't be together.
No.
Wow. So basically it was just meant to be in that way.
I think so.
I guess so.
Yeah, because y'all weren't, because it's just because it's just like, it's funny because you weren't too far from each other, but at the same time it was almost just right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. And then I know a lot of people give a lot of flack to dating apps, but those are valid, you know, like those are valid ways to meet people in some cases.
Oh yeah, I mean, especially in the areas that we're in, you know, I mean, he's from Southern Illinois, so, you know, it's not a very open area with a lot of this, and coming from where I'm at, I'm used to everybody being, whatever, we don't care.
Mm-hmm. So, Dexter, when it comes to your wrestling career, when did you start training, and who was responsible for training you, and what was the best lesson that you ever learned while you were training?
Well, I started training, I remember the date. It was August 2nd, 2016. It's one of the days like I will forget, because I'm actually starting to do something that I've wanted to do for so long and never thought I'd get a chance to. So that's definitely a date that sticks out to me. And my primary trainer was Heath Hatton. As I mentioned earlier, he runs and owns Stride Pro Wrestling out of now Carterville, Illinois. And I mean, I can't say enough good things about the training program. He really took his time with us and patient with us, even especially when you're new, sometimes it takes a while to get to things. Mm-hmm. But probably the biggest lesson I learned out of it is that I can actually do anything if I put my mind to it. Like, for the longest time, like, I had a lot of doubts. Like, if I couldn't do anything, or maybe didn't do it to the best of my ability, or so I thought, I may have been like, okay, maybe this isn't for me, let me move on. But this is something that I stuck with, and now I'm 5.5 years into it, and I love it more now than I did when I first started. So yeah, probably just believing in myself is probably one of the biggest things that I've got out of this.
Yeah, that's really deep, because, we all have, certain doubts, but it takes a lot to push past those doubts in order to try something new, or even to stay consistent at a thing that you may not have been good at first, and you didn't think you would be good at, but then it takes a lot of strength to be able to persevere and continue to work on those challenges in order to get better. So Logan, I think I would pose the same question to you, seeing as you're just starting.
Oh gosh. Well, let's see, that was 2 weeks ago.
First week of February.
I started on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. The trainer now is not the same guy that trained Dexter. His name is Roger. Mm-hmm. He actually occasionally works Thursdays down at OVW in Louisville, Kentucky. Mm-hmm. I'm really enjoying it. He's very detail oriented, so I really like that. I feel comfortable saying no if I don't, feel comfortable doing something. Mm-hmm. But so far, I've found most of it so far kind of easy. I kind of credit having a previous athletic background. I used to do gymnastics, and I was an elite competitive all-star cheerleader. So kind of a lot of the jumping and flipping and everything is kind of coming a little easy. There's been a couple things that I've been struggling with, but I think if I just keep my mind to it, I think I won't have any issues. Hopefully.
And like you said, that's one of the good things. You did have an athletic background going into it.
Yeah.
Me, I did not. I did no type of sports or anything like that. So I will tell a funny story on myself, because why not? The first day of practice, we were learning how to take bumps. So everybody knows, or at least the people within wrestling, tuck your chin, because if you don't, you're going to get whiplash and smack your head and possible concussions. Mm-hmm. So kept doing that. So we were with a mixed martial arts company at the time. They were doing like half the building, and we were having our part too. So we just grabbed some of the headgear to put on. And me, again, not having any type of athletic background, I proceeded to put the thing on backwards. So yeah, I still get flack for that to this day.
Well, I mean, you got to start somewhere.
Exactly.
You have to start somewhere. And the thing about wrestling is that it may have its flaws at times, but the thing about wrestling that I love is the fact that it's one of those sports that you can try regardless of what your background is. Because it's like you have people like Logan, who were, in gymnastics, which is pretty high powered stuff. Like, I've watched gymnastics, in the past, and it's pretty, and I also have friends, that I went to college with who participated in that, and it is really extreme, and I respect it so much, and it's amazing to watch. So if you have that type of focus on that, then applying that to wrestling would be really good. So it's just, and then you have other people who have other athletic backgrounds in other sports like football or track and other stuff. And that, works well for them in wrestling. And then you have other people who had never tried it before, but then they give it a go and they wind up, excelling at it as well. So I think that's cool that the both of you, collectively have those stories of, one having athletic background and one not, but then still, making the best of, whatever it is, or wherever it is that you did start, and then you can continue to move forward and figure out, what that means for you as an athlete. I think that's cool.
Yeah. And he also gets the added benefit of living with a wrestler too. So we get to work on lockups and chaining and different stuff like that whenever we want to. So he gets a little leg up on that as well.
As long as I don't give him any more bruises.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I think that's great that you guys train together. Like, I always think that's amazing when wrestlers who just so happen to be, couples, train together and help each other get better. Like, that's cool. I love that. Like, that's really amazing.
Because I'm always going to want him to do the best, like, in life, just not in ring either. So we went up to the ring one day last week, and we kind of went through a lot of things that he had already learned pretty quickly, and he got blown up, and I was like, okay, ready to go? Let's do some more. He was like, I need a break.
Oh, that's sweet. All right, so Dexter, what I will ask you is, since you're sort of the more seasoned wrestler in a sense, had you faced any other obstacles as you've sort of matriculated through wrestling, and how did you overcome them?
I wouldn't necessarily say I had any obstacles to overcome per se. I try to keep pretty level-headed when it comes to wrestling. I mean, like with most people, there's times that I've been jealous of other people's success, but like, I have to just realize we're here all doing the same thing. So we need to build each other up and not be worried about, oh, why didn't I get this shot? Or why didn't I get to go for this title? Like, the main thing is making sure the crowd is entertained. Because when it comes down to it, like, we put our bodies on the line for the entertainment of the crowd. And once I got that in my head, I was like, okay, I don't need to worry about any of that stuff. I just need to focus on what I'm doing, getting better in the ring, getting better doing promos, interacting with the crowd, different things like that. And I feel like I really have over the last year. But yeah, I can't think of really anything that I've had to overcome obstacle-wise. Can you think of anything?
I mean, personally for me, I think maybe the obstacle for you was being an openly gay wrestler.
Yeah. But I will say, like, even though I do live in the Southern Illinois region, which typically isn't the most accepting, I've had nothing but like love and support from the people that have been around me. Like,
yeah,
I was really worried about coming out because, I mean, it is such a physical sport and you're really like getting close with everybody, and the old saying and everything is like baby oiled men and like half naked wrestling around. It already has the stigma as it is. But like, I credit everybody that I've worked with for going above and beyond, making me feel welcomed, and really not even changing anything. If anything, strengthening my friendships with people. And I can't thank those people enough.
Yeah, I think it's great that when you have a community that sort of shows you love, in the sense that you're already, sort of othered when you are a wrestling fan or you are a wrestler, because not that many people do that for a living. But then on top of that, when you're also othered because of who you are as a person and how you identify, there's like another added pressure to that. So it is important, to surround yourself with people who do see you for who you truly are and, love you for who you are. And I'm glad that you have that community, in your husband and in other people who like working with you. Because, I mean, a lot of stories, I feel like some of the stories that we don't hear a whole lot are the struggles of those who may not necessarily, identify as straight.
Yeah.
And so the idea that you're on here and even telling your story now is a pretty powerful thing. So at least now I know that, you feel a sense of comfort because you found, your community of people who will show you love. And if there's ever a point where somebody tries to, I hope you haven't experienced anyone being mean to you because of that.
Not directly within the wrestling community. Some fans kind of have went out of their way, but I'll just tell a story. I was working at a company, and like I come out in a suit, fixed up hair, clean cut, and all that. And when I came out, they started chanting the F word.
Oh no!
Which I know it wasn't directed to me as a person. It was more just as an insult. But I hate that term has been so closely associated with something to hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I just had to realize, like, these people have no, I don't even know what the word to say, like, meaning in my life besides trying to entertain them. So it didn't really bother me that much. Now, some of the people in the back who are not happy about it, people were apologizing to me for the fans and everything. I was like, I get it, and I'm so happy that you guys feel this way, but I see it differently because I know they're not directing it directly to me as a person.
Yeah. And even in hearing that, I understand like that has to be still hurtful for it to a degree, because that is a very hurtful word. It makes me mad whenever I see situations like that, even outside of wrestling where stuff like that happens. I'm just like, why just why?
But one thing we can do, like, some of my friends have used that word before in a derogatory term, never towards me, but just in general, and I've heard it. I always tell them, hey, I don't want you to use that word, but if you're going to use it, don't use it around me. So we also have a responsibility to educate people as well. Like, not to use that word because of the derogatory meaning behind it.
Right. And Logan, is there, has that affected you in any way in terms of, watching him perform and having to deal with stuff like that?
Let me just say, I feel sorry for anybody who ever says that.
There's been a few times I've heard a couple fans that I was ready to throw down, but I was like, I need to take a step back. I just think a lot of it, for our area, a lot of people, one, they're not used to being around same-sex couples. And I think a lot of it's just education. Mm-hmm. And, you don't always have to agree with how someone lives their lives, but I mean, at least educate yourself so that you have an understanding. I mean, like I always tell people, feel free to ask questions. I don't care to answer them. You don't have to 100% agree with it. But I mean, if you're talking to me and you're my friend, then obviously you do like me. So, you're going to have some type of acceptance, with my lifestyle, with who I'm married to. Like I said, a lot of it just comes back to education, just being educated, ask questions, just so that you have an understanding. You don't have to 100% support it, just educate.
and the thing is, it's just a small part of who we are as people. I remember hearing a song, it was called Define Me. I don't even remember who sings it, but it's like, don't define me just for this one thing. Like, I'm so much more than being a homosexual, being gay, whatever you want to call it. Like, I'm still the same person as I was before I came out. Just now that I'm saying that I'm gay, it shouldn't change anything.
Yeah, it really shouldn't. And I just know, speaking, for myself, I know I was raised, to love everyone. And I just know for me in my heart, I just try to do my best to make people feel safe and comfortable in who they are, because I just know I wouldn't want to feel unsafe in who I am. So I just try to, give, everyone that same treatment. So here on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and in life, you guys have met me. I love you. And that's really all that. Yeah, that's all that's important. So this is a love-based place, and I hope that you feel safe with me. And that's really all I can do, because we can't really control other people, but we can control ourselves.
Exactly.
So yes, definitely. So how would you say the independent wrestling scene has treated you since you started, Dexter?
Pretty well. I mean, whenever I first started, it was probably about 4 months into my training, I was given the politician gimmick to work. Mm-hmm. And crowds do not like politicians. I'll say that. So, I think a lot of the fans, like most of them now, like kind of know what's going on, but you still want to help try to just suspend disbelief to like give them the best show that you can. So I think they see our hard work that we put out there, and they just give it right back to us, whether it's you wanting to be cheered or booed. I think it's a little bit easier to get booed, but because it's so much easier to have somebody not like you than to like you. But yeah, most of the time I've been a bad guy, but at IWA Productions and Belladonna, I am a good guy, and I like it because it's a challenge.
Okay, and Logan, have you? I know you're still just starting and everything, but have you thrown around any ideas as to what type of character you would like to have?
Oh gosh, I don't want to jinx myself with it yet. I mean, I want to be someone that I want to be I want to be a face. I want to be someone with bright colors and kind of has them catchy little sayings, and it's fun. I want to have that upbeat, come out to upbeat music, and I probably wouldn't mind going bad one day, but so far, I mean, I'm still just kind of trying to find myself and where I fit in with all of it. So I've ran different ideas. Might have created myself on my wrestling game.
Multiple times. But that is one thing that does helping you try to figure out your character. Kind of using that, because it's there, might as well use it. Seeing kind of, okay, I like this look, but I don't like that color scheme with that one. You can kind of play around with it before you go full-fledged and have somebody make it weird.
You're like this is like the kind of like the third conversation I've had that's centered in wrestling and video games. Because all last weekend I was talking to people and how much they love video games and how much they love wrestling and how that sort of tied together. So maybe at some point I should, talk and deep dive more into wrestling and video games. But I think that is a very valid way to sort of, stick to like certain characters or something like that if you're being a creative in that way. So Logan, you do have time though. Like that's the beauty of it. Since you have started, you do have, time to sort of think of things and figure out what works and what doesn't. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be really cool, when you do. So that's going to be great. So, Dexter, would you say that you have a strong fan base as of yet?
I think so. I have several people that follow me religiously as far as like on all my social medias, which you have been helping with.
Kind of took over.
And like there's been a lot of people that come out and support me. Like for the longest time, my parents came to every show that I've went to, but with COVID and everything and their immunity being kind of down, they haven't been to any shows lately, but they are going to start coming back once things get a little bit better. But then I always have a few fans that I have in mind that are always either cheering me or booing me, whatever needs to. And just like, I love the fan support.
That's cool that you have that support, and then also the people who don't support you as well, and boo you or whatever.
Yeah.
But without those fans, I mean, if you don't know, or if you're not getting a reaction, then I guess that's not, working.
Oh yeah.
If you're not getting a reaction out of them, then that's not really working. So I'm glad that at least that you do have people who love you and then people who don't like you, because at least now you know that you're getting a rise out of people either way.
Yeah, and I mentioned my parents. Whenever I first started, my mom was worried that I'd get hurt and everything. So I remember the first show I went to, she was like half kind of looking through her eyes, as I was doing all this stuff, and they got more comfortable with it. But like I had to tell them, hey, I'm gonna be this bad guy politician, so kind of go along with it and boo me and stuff like that. And then they started getting put into the shows to a degree. Everybody knew my parents especially my mom, is Dexter's mom. So then they could cheer me whenever they wanted to, even if I was a bad guy. But it's been fun having. I remember one time in particular, I was doing a paddle on a pole match, And the guy I was facing, I was fighting him on the ringside. I took him over to my mom, and I had my hands behind, like holding him down so my mom could slap him. Of course, you know, it backfires on me. She ducks, my head goes forward, and she ends up slapping me. Which I remember asking her, like, "Hey, are you cool with this spot?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, you know, you could have put a little pause there and been like, "No, I don't really want to, but if you want me to." No, she went straight to reality.
That's cool. So basically, you could have a Dexter's mom. That she should have a T-shirt that says Dexter's mom.
We really should.
Or Dexter's dad. Or
we are working on expanding Dexter's merchandising, so that may be one that comes out.
Oh, that should definitely be a thing. I think that's cute. And I just love it. Now, I know my parents, I know if I was a wrestler, thankfully I'm just a commentator / interviewer. So I don't have to get violent with people. But I'm pretty sure like if my parents,
just wait for the day. It could come.
Oh God, it could. But you know, it's just that if my parents were into that sort of thing, like if they were watching me do that, they would be like, "Go Stephanie, go!" Or it would either be "Go Stephanie, go," or "I'm gonna intervene on your behalf." Because I really don't fight. Like, I'm not a violent person. It's just like I wouldn't know what to do if somebody told me one day, "Oh, you're gonna have to fight this person." I'd be like, what? I hate confrontation. Like, I hate confrontation. So I just be like, "Oh God, okay." But I might get into it a little bit. I don't know. But you know, I feel like my parents would they would either be laughing at it or they'd want to intervene on my behalf. But it's cool that your parents are into it and stuff. That's great. Yeah. So have you guys
Oh, sorry. And your parents,
yeah,
they've been to some of my shows too.
They've been to some of them.
Oh man.
Not into it, surprisingly.
I told him I was training, and my dad goes, "What, are you going to be a famous wrestler like Dexter now?"
Oh, that's so sweet. Shout out to the in-laws. Yay. So how would you say wrestling sort of brought you guys closer together? And if there are any challenges that wrestling brings to you guys as a married couple?
Well, I think, like, personally, wrestling just brought us closer just because we get to spend more time together. Since it is something that we both like a lot, we watch it together, we talk about it together, we do it together now. I love doing all the traveling and meeting everybody, meeting the different people, you know, making new friends, creating contacts. Like, I love all of that. So I just feel like just everything in general, collecting the action figures, I just think it's all just 100% brought us together. I don't really feel like there's a whole lot of challenges with it. Because, like, there's some days he goes to wrestling and I stay home. And I'm just like, okay, have fun. I'll be at home. I'll see you when you come home because I know where you're coming, where you're going.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I don't feel like there's any real challenges that have caused, like, a roadblock in our relationship. Like you said, if anything, it's made it stronger because we do get to spend more time with each other for good or for bad sometimes. But no, like I appreciate the fact that, like, he was into wrestling beforehand and was so supportive of my career, and if I needed to go somewhere for a show, he'd be like, "Okay, when are we leaving?" You know. So I mean, I think just that, especially in the formative stages of our relationship, him being that supportive, that, like, I think really built us closer.
Yeah, like, I know from personal experience, it's great to have a partner that supports your thing, whatever it is. Because I know in the case of me and my relationship, my boyfriend, he was very supportive of me sort of starting my wrestling podcast, even though I had been a fan my entire life, and wrestling was actually what brought us together, in our collective fandom. But it's just that when I said I wanted to start a podcast and, you know, start doing commentary or whatever, it really does help. And it gives you sort of like an extra set of wings when you have a supportive partner. Like, it makes you feel like, you know, you can almost like do anything because, you know, the person that you love really believes in you, you know, and what you can do, even on the days where you don't believe in you and you're just like, "Oh my God, I can't do this." You're like, "Yes, you can, stop it." Yeah. You know, and it's just really great, you know, to have that extra set of wings. And that person who really does believe in what you can do. And And it's great that you guys have built that, support system, very early. So now that you guys have it, all you can do is continue to build on that foundation and make a beautiful brick house out of it. So yeah, I started the foundation thing and I had to finish. I had to finish it and just make it make sense. So yeah, that's a beautiful thing.
I feel like lately I can think of like examples that both of us have had separately to where we've both doubted what we've been doing. Like, are we doing enough? Are we doing this or that? And the other person has been there and been like, yes, you're doing fine. Keep going. It's your head telling you that you're doing bad.
Right.
From an outside perspective, somebody who is seeing you do this, you're doing fine. So having that communication to where we can be like, keep up the good work, you're doing great, all this stuff, but also that really sucked, don't do that move again, stuff like that. But you have to have that good and that bad, because especially within wrestling, you have to be able to take constructive criticism.
Oh yeah.
So as hard as I'm going to be on myself, he's going to be hard on me as well.
Oh,
and vice versa.
I tell him all the time, I'm your biggest fan, but I'm your biggest critic, and I'm going to tear you down first before everybody else tears you down, because I feel like if I tell you that was the worst crap I've ever seen in my entire life and you need to fix it, it kind of hits you harder coming from me, kind of hurts your feelings a little bit more, but you're going to have a bit better like defense and wall against somebody telling you, oh, you suck.
Yeah, definitely. And wrestling is about that constructive criticism, but it's good that you guys have each other to sort of be honest, with each other about things, especially even in wrestling. And so you guys are sort of preparing each other to sort of face the world and face all of the things that the wrestling business has to offer in terms of that. So that's really good. And I'm glad that you guys have that in each other. And speaking of that, wait a minute. I think I lost my thought. What happened? Okay. Because you guys said something and it really triggered like a thought in me, and then all of a sudden I just lost it and now I'm mad. Yeah. So what I will ask you is, what is your favorite thing to do together outside of wrestling?
Oh gosh. We don't do a lot outside of wrestling, honestly. Probably just hanging out with friends. Like before I met him, before I got into wrestling, like I wasn't very social. So he has definitely brought that out of me. So we always try to make time for our friends and family, because without them, what else would we do and who else would be there to support us? So like we have a good close knit group of friends that we try to hang out with as much as possible.
Okay. So basically, Logan was just like, okay, we need to hang out with our people more. And then you're just like, yeah.
Oh no, I moved in and this man had blackout curtains over every window. And I'm like, no, we need to brighten it up in here. He was so antisocial that it was blackout curtains everywhere. And I'm like, do you not have nice neighbors?
I had nice neighbors, but I also didn't like the sun beating down in my face, especially when I was trying to sleep or relax on the couch.
That sounds a lot like me and my boyfriend, because I love light and he has it dark, but he has it dark for another reason though. Like he gets migraines. So it's just like, I totally, understand it from that perspective. But in the first few months of our relationship, I was just like,
I need to open these curtains.
Like, why is it so dark? Why can't we go outside? What's going on?
I feel like I would really like him though.
So yeah. How do you guys feel about the state of wrestling now?
That's kind of hard to answer because we don't really watch much wrestling, surprisingly. Ever since I got into wrestling, I start watching it differently. So I watch it still as a fan to a degree, but at the same time, I'm also thinking, ooh, I like that move. I wonder if I could do it. Or, oh, they did this wrong and like they weren't in the right position or something like that. So sometimes like
I'm opposite.
Trying to like flip that switch to where it's like, okay, I want to flip the switch to where I'm just a fan so I can watch wrestling. But I'm so glad that there are multiple companies out there that are doing well, because competition is only going to bring out the best in everybody. And it just gives people more places to go as well. So like, I like it, but I wish I could just watch it differently.
I watch it. I watch it without him. I just said I sit and watch videos by myself. Either it's just to be a fan, or to learn, kind of watching how everybody does everything, lockups and everything. I think the state of wrestling is really wild now, especially when it comes to the female competitors. I'm a big women's wrestling fan, so I am all about this women's evolution and the change in women's wrestling in general. It's come such a far way, but I get mad though when I'm watching certain pay-per-views still, because I'm just like, no, that person doesn't need it. They don't deserve it.
As we all do at certain times,
oh,
right?
Yeah.
And watching wrestling, I will say this to Dexter's point, like watching wrestling, even as a journalist at times, and also, as a fan, it's like you're sort of, as a professional, you're sort of trying to find that, or at least I'm still trying to sort of find that line between being a fan and enjoying it, and also still knowing sort of the nooks and crannies of, the underbelly of wrestling. And you're just sort of like, you know what, a part of me wants to just enjoy it at the same time, but then another part of me has to watch it from another, perspective. And it's really hard to navigate it. But, you try to find your groove as best as you can when it comes to that. But sometimes you do have to turn the professional part off if you want to, enjoy things. And like you, Logan, I am definitely a women's wrestling fan. Like, I've been a women's wrestling fan, for such a long time, and I was a huge advocate for the women getting, the same amount of time and showing more athleticism, than their looks and stuff.
Yeah.
And once it started happening a lot more, that's not to say that it wasn't happening before, because it was happening in other companies before it hit the mainstream. But just the idea that, it's happening more and more and it's actually being celebrated is making me feel really good and making me feel welcome. But I am still hoping for more women, as storytellers and, as commentators as well. So people like me can have a chance and have a job and have other opportunities and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm definitely, an advocate for all of that. So I definitely get what it's like to try to find that line. It's hard, but once you find it, you find it.
And your love of women's wrestling, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I was like, okay, I know he's the one for me. Because I remember when we first started talking, he was talking about all these women's wrestlers, and he brought up Taylor Wilde. And for some reason, my mind just went blank. I did not remember her. And he was like, you don't remember Taylor Wilde? So, okay, he knows his stuff. He's just not Googling names,
Nope.
Hulk Hogan, John Cena, the bigger names. But it's also one of the reasons that we became friends with you, is because Logan wanted to go down to the Belladonna show down in Gadsden, Alabama. And because of that, when we came down there, I thankfully got booked on that. Kate Dillon, she needed somebody, and we had known her before that from her coming up for the IWA production shows. He asked me if I would be on the show, and I was like, yes, I'll get my license, I'll do all this, I'll get on there as soon as I can. And like I said, it's how we met you. So meeting people and the opportunities that have come out of this, I'm very thankful for your love of women's wrestling.
Yeah, and the thing about being with Casey and being a part of Belladonna is just the fact that it's really like an all-female thing, and it's very empowering in the sense that you have women running the company and telling the stories, and and even with me on commentary, even though I did just start last year, it's just the idea of being a part of something that cool, and then to be a part of it even in my home state. That's what makes it even better, because it's I'm not from Gaston, I'm from Birmingham, so that's 2 or 3 hours away from Gaston, but still, just being a part of something like that, it's amazing. And I'm so glad that you guys can appreciate it, and just loving being a part of it as well. So it's great, and I'm so glad that wrestling brought you guys together. So it's funny, Dexter, you said that him loving women's wrestling was how you found out he was the one. So Logan, how did you know that Dexter was the one?
Oh,
how did you know I was the one?
Well, I mean, honestly, it doesn't even have to deal with wrestling or anything in general. Well, we met though. I just got out of like over a 3-year-long engagement, so I was like unsure of where I was going, what I was doing at all. And I think a lot of it was just the patience and the love that did get showed and the caring, because, you know, my relationship wasn't the best, so I didn't get a lot of what someone should get from, you know, a significant other. It got kind of dark at times, and he showed me a complete different side of how I should be treated and how, you know, we should treat each other. So I mean, that's really why I fell in love with him. But you know, wrestling helped.
That's beautiful.
And at the time, like, I lived in Illinois, he lived in Indiana, so it was like, what was it, about 2.5 hours?
2.5 hours and a time change.
Yeah, time change. So like, we would video chat each other every night. Like, anytime I had a show, he would come up and come to the shows with me. When I didn't have one, I would come there and be with him. So it took a lot of hard work and dedication. I mean, just like how with wrestling, you need to put in the hard work and dedication. You have to do that with a relationship if it means something to you. And obviously it does. And here we are.
Right. That's beautiful that you guys were able to do that. Even with wrestling, you know, as an added bonus, and then, you know, just putting in the work to make it work. And it is hard to put in the work, especially when you've been in a relationship that wasn't exactly the healthiest for you. I've been there. It takes a lot to sort of, you know, push past what you've been through in the past in order to try to make it work with this person who is definitely showing you something different and showing you that you are worthy of the right type of love and the healthiest type of love. And I'm so glad that you guys found that in each other, and then found it, you know, within a hobby, and even made it work via long distance. And that's so crazy that you said it, that's long distance, because even my relationship started long distance, except ours wasn't just 2.5 hours away. Ours was 6.
Oh.
Yeah, because even though we're both from Birmingham, I was in school in Kentucky, and he was down here, and we had met each other a few years before, but then we started connecting and talking to each other about wrestling, you know, on social media, and that's how it started happening. And we decided that what we needed in each other, you know, was there along with wrestling and stuff. And we weren't trying to get together. We weren't trying to make something happen, but it just happened. And we just had that chemistry there. And once we decided that we wanted to make it work with each other, it worked. We communicated. I saw him on all my breaks, unless of course I was doing something else on another break. But we still decided to make it work because we saw that it was worth it in each other. And it's great, and we're still together, and it's just, you know, a beautiful thing. So, and this was before I even started, you know, my whole wrestling life now. Yeah. So we basically have had our groove, and we're just building more bricks and, you know,
more
stuff
bricks
together.
More bricks in that foundation.
Yes, on that foundation, and then we'll have a big house at some point. But yeah, it's working out, and I love that, you know, for you guys, and I love that for us. It's so great.
Yeah.
Okay. It's wonderful. So who do you guys, you know, have as a top 5 in terms of wrestlers, male or female, or non-binary?
Like, favorite wrestlers to watch in general and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Probably my favorite wrestler is Jeff Hardy. Like, he's one of my favorites. Like, I remember whenever I first started, like, my very first match, I literally had 4 hours notice before having that match. So I had these black trip pants and I paired it with like a green shirt and everything like that. So you can see where my inspiration came from.
Right.
It was awful.
Oh, shut up. But no, like, just the way the crowd reacts to him and like the style that he works, like, he's probably one of my favorites. But then I also like Finn Balor. It's a lot of the action figures that we collect are people that we enjoy. You'll collect all the women's wrestlers. Like, I try to collect all the ones of the wrestlers that I enjoy the most. So like,
I'm going snatch. Just give me them all.
So as far as that, like, probably Jeff Hardy, Finn Balor, Macho Man, Sting, and Ultimate Warrior probably are my top ones that I enjoy watching and collecting figure wise.
You, Logan?
I've actually had a really big change here recently. I like my mainstream, WWE has always been, Trish Stratus and Lita. It's been like my two favorites. I love Jeff and Rey Mysterio, and now we got Alexa Bliss in there. Love her, but now that I've gotten so much more involved with wrestling and being on the independent scenes and stuff, like I love Shalonce Royale. She is so awesome. It doesn't hurt that we have a relationship outside of wrestling, and she's got the greatest personality ever.
Yes.
But I love watching her and just seeing her in the ring. So she definitely gets to make like my top 5 now, and like I love watching Kylan King. See her at NWA Empower. I love that.
Yes.
I love Melina. Always really liked Melina.
Mickey James.
When
she came out at the Royal Rumble, even though you knew she was in it, he was like...
Yes, like the minute you heard hardcore country, that was it.
Oh. God, I was done for after that. And then like even getting to meet Hollywood Haley J that wrestles at OVW. I love her. She's so funny. She's a wild character. I'm getting such an expansion on like some of my favorite people just from meeting him and trying to like push him to go do more independent shows outside of Illinois. There's just so many now. And then it's awesome too that, Belladonna does work with IWA out of Mount Vernon, and they have division. And so I'm getting to meet more and more women. So I'm just like, oh, there's more here. Can we go meet them now? I don't want to see everybody else. I want to go meet them. Get out of my way.
Yes, I totally get it, because I know being in the wrestling business for me, it's really great, meeting all of these people who may not necessarily be as mainstream famous, but then it's just like you see them working towards, whatever their goals are. And then when you meet them and you see them, it's really cool, especially when you realize, how human and how down to earth they are, just like you. It's amazing. And it's like so many people you mentioned who were at Empower. And then another way we're connected is the fact that you were there and I was there as a media correspondent for Women's Wrestling Talk. Like, that's so insane. We were there together and had no clue.
No idea.
No idea about each other.
He surprised me with the tickets, and I think I about had a panic attack. Probably. When are we leaving? Let's go now. I'm
Yes, and I had to go for work. I knew I really did want to go, but I wasn't sure. But then once I finally, did put forth the effort and was there, that was one of the most amazing experiences of my life.
Oh my gosh, yes. I was so mad too because he got to touch Gail Kim and I didn't, and I was so jealous.
Oh.
He was going around high-fiving everybody. And like we had moved up front. And like she like grabbed onto my hand and everything, and then Logan just like, oh.
I was about dead.
So then we moved spots, and then nobody else came around.
Oh my God, that's so crazy. But Logan, since we're talking about that, what was your favorite moment from Empower since you were there too? Actually, both of you, what was your favorite moment?
My favorite was actually getting to see Melina live for the first time. Like, I hated it when she left WWE. I was so sad because I enjoyed her a lot and always wanted to see her live. And I mean, I was just as excited to see Mickey James and Gail Kim live and Awesome Kong coming out, and then getting to see a lot of the independent people that were on the show as well. But just to see Melina live standing right there in front of me, I was just like, Melina! And she heard me, she just looked at me, and she pointed. I was just like, I think I died a little bit. And then I watched back YouTube, like videos on YouTube of the show, and like I can hear myself yelling over everybody else. I had no voice for like 3 days after that, but it was totally worth it.
Yeah.
Probably for me, the Awesome Kong retiring like while it was happening, I didn't even realize it was happening until I read reports later on. But I was like, just that moment between her and Gail Kim, like with the storied history that they have, but putting on some of the best matches in MMA, not just for the women, but in general, putting on some of them. That was a cool moment. And then seeing a few people that I've worked on shows with, like Marty Bell, like she came down for one of IWA production shows, and we really got talking to her and getting to know her and everything, and she's great. And then Tootie Lynn Ramsey,
love Tootie,
the little blue dragon. I remember I've worked a few shows with her on Cape Championship Wrestling out of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. So seeing her get that reaction that she got, that was a great moment for me, just because I know how much hard work that she's put into it.
The goosebumps in that room. Her music hit and she came out. I was like, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it now.
Yes, everybody went crazy for her, and I had never heard of her up until that point. So being at Empower was a learning experience for me, because outside of a lot of the other major stars, there were some people there who I also hadn't heard of, up until that point. But just the idea of everybody going crazy for her, and her being from St. Louis too, like, it was just the most coolest moment ever. And I really think I feel like that's tied as my top moment from that whole thing, because of the fact that she was literally like the second one, like she was a part of the final two with Chelsea Green, and I wanted her to win so bad.
I did too.
Oh my god, I wanted her to win so bad. But I mean, Chelsea won, and now Chelsea Green is great. Like, I love Chelsea Green, and everything she's offering and stuff. But it's just like, if Tootie had won, that would have been everything. And I'm so happy that she was actually able to be a guest on my show, a little bit after that, because we met and connected too. So I've interviewed her twice. So just being able to meet her and, see her in action, that was cool. And that entire elimination match was amazing. Like, that was so amazing. Like, I felt like it was just, you could feel all the girl power in the room.
Oh yeah.
It was like, you could just touch it, you can taste it. Like, that's really how it felt. And it's just, every time I think about Empower, I just think about, it just makes me, sort of just think about how anything's really possible, in wrestling, for women as a whole.
Oh yeah.
And then just being there for Women's Wrestling Talk and being able to interview people, like, that was just really great. And oh my god, it was great. And the more I think about it, the more it makes me want to cry. But I'm not gonna do it today.
Well, then I was really excited too, because we were standing inside waiting to go in, and the group from Ring the Bell.
Yeah.
So I was like, I watch you.
Yes, and that was my first time meeting them too. Like, literally, like, there were so many friendships made.
Oh yeah.
Off of that one weekend, and it was so cool. And it's people that I love and respect, and whenever I see them on TV from time to time, I'm like, hey, there you go. It's so cool. Like, I love it so much.
And speaking of WA, one of our friends that we both done a podcast, he's wanting us to come on to his podcast with his wife, and we're going to watch along to NWA Empower, since we were all there. So we're going to get to relive all that and kind of share our experiences. So we're looking forward to doing that as well.
Oh, that sounds great. I haven't rewatched it since then, but I feel like if I did, I would just be a hot mess and just be a puddle of tears.
He's going to.
Oh my god. It'll just be too much. I'll just cry throughout the whole thing. So I guess I can ask the both of you this one question. Who are your dream opponents?
Oh gosh. I mean, like I mentioned, Jeff Hardy's my favorite wrestler, so I would love to get in the ring with him, just to say that I have. But around this area, I'm trying to think of anybody, because for the longest time I kind of limited myself to the Southern Illinois area, so I've worked with a lot of the same people.
I got one.
But probably one person, like, I had a tag match against him, but Austin Lane. He like a guy, met him out of Cape Championship Wrestling, and he would be probably one that I would like to work a match with.
Okay. And you, Logan?
I'm wearing them right now, actually. Exotic Youth.
Oh, okay.
I think they would be fun to get into the ring with.
Okay. Are they a tag team or are they just...
They are a tag team.
Okay.
We got to meet them. They're actually a trio. They're a trio. We got to meet them when we went to the Gulf Shores down at Navarre, Florida, and you got onto one of the shows over in what town was that? It was right next door.
Gosh, I can't think of what town it is.
It was like literally 20 minutes down the road. I actually messaged Casey about if she knew any promoters down there and if she could get us some information so that we could message him, and we got him booked on a show while we were on vacation, and I got to meet the Exotic Youth, and I mean, they were just kind of fun. I just kind of like their whole kind of wild party boys.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny with that vacation, like you were going to try to surprise me with getting me a booking, like have all my gear in the back and like let me know it. And like a day or two before, I'm like, I wonder if I could get on a show down there. He was like, well, dang it. I was going to try to surprise you with it, but.
Okay. Those are pretty great choices. So I'm definitely looking forward to anything that you guys have going on in your future. Just a couple more questions. One question that I do have is, how important is it to you to be a representative of the LGBTQIA plus community in wrestling?
Well, it's like how we mentioned earlier about just educating people. I think the more that people know that, hey, this character that I see on here is a part of the LGBTQ plus community, and it's not hindering them and they're not being down on. I think that sends a powerful message. Mm-hmm. And there needs to be more of that. And like Logan said earlier, it's all about education. And it's like, if you don't understand something, ask. Because like how you mentioned, or like we talked earlier before we started recording, it's like you asked if there was anything we were uncomfortable with. Like, I'm an open book. So like there's not very many things that I won't talk about. So if somebody comes to me and like really just has an urge to know, like, please educate me on this, I'll be more than happy.
Okay, that's a pretty solid answer. And Logan, did you want to add to that?
I mean, I just think it's important, just the fact that, whether we become stars or we don't become stars, but, just that we get, our message out there that you can be a part of the LGBTQ plus community and you can be successful in the professional wrestling world. Like, I mean, I am not successful yet. I mean, I just started. He's been doing it for 5 years, and we're just now starting to get him some more notoriety out there and getting noticed by some bigger companies that are wanting him to come in and start working. So, I mean, we're still working on ourselves to get a little bit bigger, but I think just being able to be a representative and show people that you can go for your dream, no matter, what you do or who you are or what you love. I just want people to be like this, see me as me and be excited that, hey, I'm like that person. I could go and do that too.
Pretty solid answers there. And I have no doubt that the both of you will reach all of your goals after, working really hard for them and be that, shining light for those who feel, seen by you. So I believe that's really important. And I believe that you guys will reach that. So my final question is, what does the future hold for you, Dexter, and you, Logan, as a couple and also as wrestlers?
For a couple, be together forever. But for my career in wrestling, I just want to continually keep getting better. Like, I could say, I want to go to WWE or I want to go to AEW, but honestly, for me, I don't have aspirations to go that far. Now, if it happens, I'm not going to turn it down.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to keep doing this as long as I'm having fun and happy doing it. I would love to go to some higher known places and get to know more people and just make better friendships out of it. I think that's what I want out of it.
I just honestly, it's so new for me that I'm still kind of seeing where that future does lead. I want to be successful at it. I want to be good at it. I want to be able to, travel around a little bit, go to a couple different places. And I've really enjoyed meeting all of the people that I've gotten to meet and the relationships that I've gotten to create through it. So that's the biggest thing for me, is just meeting all these people, creating these great relationships, and I feel like, I don't necessarily think everybody looks at it this way, but I always look at it now, within the wrestling community, that's somebody that you have to call on. Like, if you're having a hard time, or, you're down on yourself or feeling bad, like, there's people that you can get a hold of and talk to, and that are going to help you feel better. And it's the whole community part is really my biggest thing that I love.
Well said. Well, thank you, both of you, Dexter and Logan, for coming on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. I'm so glad to have had you both during this Love Week. So if you don't mind telling everyone where they can find you, or anything else that you've got going on, where they can follow you on socials, and you may do so now.
Well,
I'll let you go that. You handle most of it.
I handle most of the social media, but you can find him on Facebook as Dexter Roswell. He does have an Instagram that we're working on getting up, and it's also as Dexter Roswell. And then we both have Twitter. He is Dexter Roswell on Twitter as well. His booking is on there, and then I'm on Twitter as Logan Roswell. So feel free to come and find us, ask us questions, invite us out.
You won't be disappointed if you have us on your show.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and hopefully I can have you both back at some point to see how you're doing and how you've evolved and stuff. Like, that would be really cool.
We appreciate you having us on here, and for any time in the future.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so I want to send a special thank you to the politician Dexter Roswell and his husband Logan Roswell for coming on my show and talking about love and wrestling in light of Valentine's Day. It's just such a beautiful holiday to really celebrate love, and I love, hearing stories about wrestlers and how they are able to keep a relationship and balance their relationship, whether their partner is a wrestler or isn't a wrestler or whatever. And their story really is inspiring. So I hope you really learned something and liked that interview that we were able to have, and I'm really grateful to have them on. You can catch the video version of our interview on my YouTube channel, which is the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. Excuse me, guys. And also know that you can subscribe and subscribe to my channel, The Hardy Wrestling Podcast on YouTube, and listen to the podcast on Anchor, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts as well. And also, if you want to find out what else is going on with the show, you can follow me, your girl Stephanie Hardy, at Queen Steph Hardy on Instagram and Twitter. And you can follow the podcast page as well on Instagram at Hardy Wrestling Podcast and on Twitter at Hardy Wrestle Pod. So next week I should have a relatively normal episode of the show. So thank you so much for listening, to the show and continuing to listen to the show. And I also want to, send a special shout out to a lot of the new listeners, and the new followers who followed me this past weekend from my, fan table at Comic-Con. I was so happy to meet all of you guys and tell you guys about what I have going on with my podcast, and just be a part of such an amazing experience in the type of anime convention that Comic-Con is. So I'm really happy I was able to make you guys fans of what I'm doing. And I hope that you continue to listen and continue to support and like, share, and subscribe things that you may like, or leave comments and stuff. So once you do that, it only helps the podcast grow more and more. So thank you guys so much for visiting my fan table. And I will talk more about my Comic-Con experience maybe on the next episode. And I also hope that you've been enjoying my Black History Month posts that I've been making throughout the month of February. And, I hope you learned something from them, because I know I've been talking a lot about Black wrestlers in the present and a few of them in the past as well. But there's just a wealth of knowledge that I feel like can't even be kept in just 1 month. So I just hope you've liked those as well. So until next time, this is the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl, Stephanie Hardy. And until next time, I hope you're being your best self, and I hope you're being as healthy as you possibly can, and just loving yourself and loving wrestling and being welcoming to others who may or may not know that much about wrestling. And, you know, and just also being loving towards those who know as much about wrestling as you do, because this is a big family, and we should all, you know, just welcome each other with open arms and teach each other as well. So until next time, bye y'all.